Hi there and welcome to the AV.com YouTube channel. My name is Tim. Now, really excited today, we're taking a look at the all new Q Acoustics 3000c range of loudspeakers. We first came across these at Munich earlier this year and we were really intrigued to see how they've taken a really popular series and a really well-loved series and improved it. So here to help us take you through the technologies and how things have improved is Alex from Q Acoustics. Welcome to the studio.
Hi Tim, hi everybody.
And we will go through this for you now. And before we do, just a reminder, give us a subscribe and a thumbs up. It really helps the channel. I think that's the intro out of the way, so let's get into it. So Alex, Q Acoustics 3000c. Firstly, how long have Q Acoustics been in existence?
We've been in existence since 2006,
okay.
Which means that we're, compared with many of the other loudspeaker brands, we're a relative newbie. And I'm not, however. I've been around a bit, and having a new brand is very exciting. You're able to introduce new ideas and you're not painted into a technical corner that you often are with older brands who've adopted things and said how good they are for years and years and years.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I've never thought about it that way, actually. That's a really interesting way of putting it. With regards to the 3000 series, has that been around since 2006?
We actually started with the 1000 series,
okay.
And then we made a few improvements and called it 1000i. We then went on to 2000, 2000i, and logically 3000 came next. But this is different because we've had 3000i, and instead of going to 4000, we've decided to stick with the 3000 moniker, and we're calling it Generation C or 3000c.
Right, I mean, I remember those 1000 series. I'm sure when I started out in retail in the HiFi stores, that's a product that we were always recommending. They were always so easy to work with any partner in equipment, and they weren't very fussy on where they were positioned. It's just always been a really great recommendation to customers.
That's not an accident. I mean, that's what we set out to do. We recognized that people don't live in symmetrical listening rooms. They have very different circumstances, and we try and make our loudspeakers function to the best of their ability, no matter what the shape of the room and no matter what the location.
Yeah, great. Look, I've got one of the older 3020i here. So this is the outgoing model for the people watching at home. And straight away, the most sort of obvious physical difference with the new range is this mid-bass driver, or the CQ continuous curved cone. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that driver and the technology?
Well, this is trickling down from our 5000 range,
okay.
which we launched a year ago. And we have three ranges, 3000, 5000, and our concept range, which is our high-end range. And the idea for the continuous curved cone is that there are two types of cone. One would be a straight-sided cone, which gives great bass but isn't so good at the higher frequencies, and the other one is a flared cone, which is better at higher frequencies but doesn't perform well with the deep bass. And what we set out to do was to design a cone profile which gets you the best possible compromise between the two. And it wasn't easy. We started off with a cone that was just a single radius. So if you imagine a tennis ball, probably best not to mention football. So if you imagine a tennis ball cut in half, then you've got a single radius. Then we put in a second radius and a third one until we have multiple radii to get just precisely the right shape. Each time listening to it, measuring it, and making sure that we were moving in the right direction.
So that's not a rigid conical cone in there. That's a sort of flaring to it. That's all deliberate.
It's a curve, and you'll notice that there's no dust cap, as you can see on the model there. And you'll probably also notice that some other speaker makers produce cones that look a bit like that, but we believe in almost all cases that's been done for cosmetic reasons rather than for the performance reasons that we've done it.
Okay, now I've read in this about the new speakers that continuous curve cone, one of the benefits is its integration with the tweeter. So why does it integrate better?
As I said, you've got a better, higher frequency performance from the cone, and that's the point at which it's crossing over with the tweeter. And what that means is that you can have a gently dropping crossover and far better dispersion when the drivers are working together.
Right. Okay. Now we mentioned that tweeter. Is it a new tweeter for this series?
It's a new tweeter to this series in as far as it's hermetically sealed, and the reason for that is to prevent any acoustic movement inside the cabinet being transmitted through the tweeter. It's also isolated in its mounting. The reason for that is to prevent vibrations in the cabinet being transmitted into the tweeter and out to the listener. So the two things are what's happening acoustically inside the cabinet and what's happening with the cabinet itself.
And that's a design principle straight from concept, isn't it?
That's correct. That's correct.
Which is great. So talk to me about the cabinet themselves. They look quite similar here when you've got the old and the new together. What's going on inside the cabinet?
Well, one of the reasons that they look similar is that we have a very accomplished designer who's been with us right from day one and does a lovely job of keeping up with the trends of the way people's interiors are changing, and also getting a relative appearance changes between the different ranges. So, for something like 3000i, we've got a sort of a brighter finish to it. Something like Concept is a bit more restrained in its appearance.
And you mentioned quite a lot the point-to-point bracing.
Point-to-point bracing has been with us throughout the ranges.
Okay.
And we've discovered it's, again, another way of minimizing the vibrations that are coming from the cabinet. And instead of just putting a shelf in, which is the way people used to do bracing, we've actually find the location or the two locations opposite each other, which we can join together with a brace in order to minimize vibrations. And it's an iterative process. We just keep trying more and more locations in order to find the right combination or the right number of braces and the right places in order to make it work. You will find that it's an obsession of ours, which is minimizing the amount of sound or vibrations coming from a cabinet. And it's easy to understand why, in as far as if you look at the size of the moving parts, if you look at the size of the tweeter and the woofer compared with the surface area of the cabinet only needs to move a small amount in order to rival what you're hearing from the drivers, and that's effectively distortion.
Yeah, got it. So so it's trial and error as to where you put those braces. You just keep trying and then you find that you've got it right.
Yes, it is. And, there are quite a few things in loudspeaker engineering that are trial and error. But, what you're always looking for is a combination between getting the theory right, getting the math right, and then making sure that it performs in measurement, and then it performs when you're listening to it.
So we've mentioned new drivers in the 3000c series, so presumably the crossover's had some work. Tell us about the crossover.
The crossover has very smooth and gentle slopes when you're reducing the high frequency and you're reducing the low frequency. And they're very high quality components, and having a simple, smooth sloping crossover means that you can minimize the number of components you've got, and it means that you aren't creating a situation where there are facets that you can hear from having a steep sloping crossover.
Okay, perfect. So behind us we've got the 3050, which is the floor standard. Now that's got a bit of extra technology in it, hasn't it?
Yes, it's got something called Helmholtz pressure equalization, which is a very grand name for a bit of piping. And the tubular construction inside is designed in order to join up the areas of highest pressure with the areas of lowest pressure in order to neutralize them. Now, when you have a floor standing speaker, and particularly one with a rear mounted port, it's just like an organ pipe. And in fact, in speaker engineering, people talk about organ piping, and that's where you get a resonance created simply by the length and the width and the depth of the speaker and the fact that it's got a port. And the pressure equalizers are designed in order to minimize the impact of that.
Okay, great. So I think it's worth taking the people at home through the range. So is it the same lineup? What are the different models in the series?
Yeah, we've stayed with the same lineup as 3000i, in as far as you've got a 3010c, you've got a 3020c, you've got a 3030c, you've got a 3050c, which is the floor standard behind us, and then a 3090c center channel, which you can see over there.
Okay, so what about colour finishes? What have we got this time round?
We've got claro walnut, pin oak, and we've got a satin black and a satin white. Now, it probably sounds a bit like marketing gobbledygook that we give them an adjective to identify them. But if you've got American walnut or British walnut, which has appeared in the previous versions of 3000i and 3000 before it, it's just to indicate that it's not exactly the same, so that you're not disappointed if you are trying to blend speakers between the two ranges in a single system.
Understood. So you obviously had a big hand in the design and the performance of these speakers. How do you know when you've got it right? When you're doing loudspeaker engineering, how do you settle and say, yeah, that's it, nailed it?
I would stress straight away that my part in it is just to be part of a team that works together. It's a team that's got a great deal of experience, and we set out by having a very clear target.
Okay.
And we know we've got there when we're achieving the target. And one of the things we wanted to do with the continuous curved cone was to get the best possible trade-off between bass extension, sensitivity, and cabinet size. And these are generally three mutually incompatible things. And as far as if your cabinet is small, it's difficult to make the speaker very sensitive, etc. And what continuous curved cone has given us is the opportunity to get the best possible balance between those three factors.
So I mentioned at the top of this video about how they're sort of not very fussy with partnering equipment. as you're tuning them and listening to them, how do you go about choosing partnering equipment? Do you have any favourites?
We don't have permanent favourites because you might find that you're designing for a specific sound. We really cycle through a number of different brands, and if there's a new amplifier, we'll often bring it in to have a listen to it and perhaps adopt it. And that's not just for internal work, but it's also when we're demonstrating. So we've used Cambridge Audio, we've used Arcam, and one of our favourites is Name, and above that for us is Marantz. And the reason for that is that Ken Ishiwata, the designer at Marantz, sadly no longer with us, he very kindly adopted our flagship speaker, the Concept 500, in order to launch his new high-end amplifier. And if you've got a few moments to go to our website, you'll see a lovely video of him explaining why he chose them and how he set them up and how much he enjoyed working with them.
Well, he sure is a legend of our industry, so that's high praise indeed. So I've got my thoughts on how they sound, but what do you think? Anyone with any experience of the Q Acoustics 3000 series, what do you think they will hear most in the improvement-wise in the new range?
I think that the first thing that you'll hear, because you typically with an audio system, you get a first impression, and then as you listen to it for longer, more and more things become evident. And the first impression would be how well damped and tight the bass is.
Okay.
And that comes from adopting the continuous curved cones. Then you'll begin to understand that the wide dispersion and the shallow crossover gives you a great overall performance from the higher frequencies as well as the bass.
I have to say I had the opportunity to take these to our showroom, and I listened to the 3020i first and then put on its successor straight away. And initially I was a little bit nervous because the 3020i is just such a cracking speaker, and I was like, this sounds really good. Is it going to be a jump? And then you put on the 3020c, and boy, what a jump it is. I think my initial remark was it just sounds like a more mature HiFi speaker, but almost like a veil had come off. There was just more of everything really. It really wasn't just a slight improvement. It's a big improvement.
Something that I really enjoyed in the development of these products was reading the engineers' notes, where they said the impact from using continuous curved cone is not subtle.
Yeah.
And so often in HiFi we find ourselves presenting something that is subtle, and in this case there is a definite step up from what we've been doing in the past with 3000.
Yeah, I would say it's such a leap that actually, if you're a current owner of the 3000 series, or indeed any of the models before, like the 2000, 1000, then the 3000c will represent a huge leap forward for that person. And at AV.com we do have our trade-in service as well, so do look into that if you're thinking of upgrading. And I can also attest to that Q Acoustics ability of being really easy to work with, because we tried it with quite a few different amplifiers, different costs, different ranges, and there was just a good performance all round. And I think that will translate well with AV as well. Now, you were saying something off air about the 3010Is. A lot of people see them as rear speakers. Do you want to just say a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, we can obviously tell by how many center channels and subwoofers we sell, how many of our products are being used in a home cinema application.
Sure.
And something that we're very conscious of, that people are inclined to think of the 3010C as solely a rear channel, and that the HiFi begins with 3020C. We don't see it that way at all. We think the 3010C is a very accomplished HiFi speaker and very well suited to matching with the new generation of streamer amplifiers.
Yeah, I mean, there's been almost an explosion of really small all-in-one amplifiers that are terrific. They're so well featured, and I think you're absolutely right to mention that. Partnering that with a 3010C would be such a brilliant, well-powered system that wouldn't dominate a home space at all.
Yes, because you've got the freedom of either shelf mounting, or we do a wall bracket, which you can hold a 3010C or a 3020C or a 3090C on, or a floor stand if you wanted.
Yeah, do you want to tell us about the stands? What stands are available for this range?
There are two models available. One is to fit the 3010C and the 3020C, and that's called FS50, and it's available in black or white.
Okay.
And we also do a dedicated stand for the 3030, called a 3030 FS, in order to convey that. And the reason for that is that the designers wanted to get the tweeter height just right.
Okay.
And also, the 3030 is a big, powerful, heavy speaker, and we didn't want to put anyone in danger of the product falling over on a pet or a child, or even on themselves.
Yeah, totally get that with two little ones at home. So let's just talk about subwoofers to complete, especially when we're talking about home cinema and that setup. So are we continuing with the 3060?
We are, and there are a few modifications in as far as we are doing a version called satin black and satin white, and those are the finishes that are used in both 3000C and also 5000.
Okay.
So it's in order to give the best possible appearance match between the range and the subwoofer. Also, the 3060 is a lovely flexible subwoofer in as far as its aspect ratio means that you can sit it next to a sofa.
Yeah, it's quite thin.
That's right, and to the point that if you had a high sofa, you could even possibly put it underneath. I mean, that's not optimal for a home cinema in as far as you'd prefer to put the front three channels and the subwoofer all at about the same distance from the customer. But, you know, as I said earlier, we're always anxious to make sure we can cater for people in a real world and not just people who have a dedicated listening space.
Sure. Now we've got a B12 here. Would that be a good fit with the 3000 series?
Oh yes, the B12 is a great bass performer, and let's face it, you can never have too much bass.
Yeah, well, I'm with you. I'm with you on that one. I'm with you on that one. Great. Well, I think we've kind of covered everything off. I have to say these are an amazing speaker. They always have been. The previous series won loads of awards, and I suspect that the 3000C will do incredibly well too. It's just so easy to recommend Q Acoustics. They work so well with a variety of equipment, and they work really well in the real world and in real world homes. And the other thing I'd say about these speakers is that they do partner really well with whatever equipment you want to go for. There are a lot of speakers out there in the market, so maybe you're just a bit where do I start on my audio journey? There's so many options. Well, you simply can't go wrong with the Q Acoustics 3000c. They're really high performing, they don't break the bank, and they sound awesome. So as always, thanks for watching. We hope you found it fun and informative. We will open the comments box, so do let us know if there's anything you want to know. Please do be kind, and we'll answer that as soon as we can. If you want to find out anything more, these products are available on av.com. Our experts are on hand if you want to give us a call, and of course you can visit our showroom and have a listen for yourself. Thank you, Alex, so much for being with us today. It's been great having you.
Thanks, Tim. I've greatly enjoyed visiting, and thanks very much, everybody, for listening.
Yeah, thanks a lot. We'll see you next time, and keep on grooving.